I am Barbara Cooney. I'm a senior engineer at Proofgeist, and I have been working as a FileMaker developer on and off for about 30 years. I have seen a lot of conventions and techniques in the course of that time, how things play out well, how things might not play out so well. So this is a little bit of lessons learned in this session. At Proofgeist, I am tech lead on many of our projects, and I also have been asked to mentor our junior developers, which keeps me sharp. When you're explaining something to someone, you really can't bluff. So that gives back to me as much as it provides to them. And I am from Long Island, New York. I doubt you detect an accent. I can lean into the Long Island if you want. We could do that. Okay. So that brings us to our topic. Learn essential techniques for creating durable Claris FileMaker solutions. Starting fresh or improving existence. And that is a strange word, right? Durable? How does durable apply to FileMaker solutions? Well, here's Webster's definition of durable. And if you look, long time, quality, value, that's what we want from our FileMaker solution. So I think durable is an appropriate word as applied to a FileMaker solution. So I presented last year on database transactions with my colleague Alo Torre-Novares, and it went really well, and I was really wanting to present again. And I couldn't think of what to do, and so I tapped Martha Zink, who I am fortunate to work with, and asked her for some ideas. And she said, all right, Barbara, when we take over a project or we're starting a new project, there's a bunch of stuff you do that sets us up for success, sets us up in a place where we can deliver quickly value to our client. Why don't you talk about those things? That it's not necessarily common knowledge, Barbara, and I think it'd be valuable to everyone. So I had expectations for what I was going to have in this presentation, but I was concerned that I would miss others' expectations. And I'm fortunate enough to work with an amazing team. So here is the team at Proofgeist. If you don't recognize their faces, I would bet you recognize some of their names. They represent hundreds of years of FileMaker development, excellence, as well as other programming languages. And so I reached out to them. Some of them are here today. Martha Zink, Ernest Coe, Todd Geist are all leading training day sessions. Eric Luce, who is hiding in our audience, is presenting tomorrow some magical stuff he's put together to help FileMaker developers enter into the web app space more easily. And later today, Cohen Walker is going to dive a little deeper into this concept that I'm introducing of explaining a DevOps approach to FileMaker development. Go up, introduce yourself. They love chatting FileMaker with people. We're very friendly, as you can see. So I asked them, if you were doing this presentation, what would you make sure to include so I don't miss anything? And here's what they said, some of their things. So let me call out some of the things that they said to me. And I will say, not only did I interview my team, I interviewed a bunch of developers that I have the pleasure of meeting up with on office hours. Josh Ormond, who's hiding in our audience as well. Josh Willing-Halpern, Robert No, who just won an award for a community leader. Dave Ramsey, the developer of FM Perception. These people that I meet on office hours were so gracious to share their knowledge and their advice is what I should say to what is supposed to be an intermediate audience of FileMaker developers. You're climbing that hill in your FileMaker development. What should you know? So take a pragmatic approach. Use the relationship graph organization to further goals of consistency, clarity, performance. Focus on writing code that is easy to bug fix, easy to modify. which is not easy to do, and we'll talk about that. Strive for simplicity, and realize there are trade-offs to be made when you're making decisions. So I stepped back from all of that input. I had all sorts of interviews, and I realized it boiled down to two key concepts, mindsets, if you will, that you should keep in mind when you're building a FileMaker solution in order for it to be durable. And they are, it is maintainable, and it is deployable. So what does that mean to be maintainable? Let's break apart the presentation. We'll do maintainable first. What are the elements, techniques you can adopt to make sure that what you build is maintainable? And being maintainable will be that it's durable. Well, before I will switch into FileMaker, but I want to talk to you about a key principle that we keep in mind when we're developing in FileMaker, and that is script types. We believe there are two main categories of scripts, UI scripts and data manipulation scripts. UI scripts have these characteristics. There is a user involved. It is the script that is attached to that button on the layout. There is a context dependency. You know, that button, that script might only work from that layout, that context. Typically, they don't edit data. They're usually the scripts that are your navigation scripts, pickers, things like that. That's a UI script in our world, as opposed to a data manipulation script. Data manipulation script, that's your workhorse. That's your create, edit, and delete script. In our world, they are typically written transactionally. And I'll talk a little bit about that, but that was my session last year, so we'll go out and watch that. The demo file you have is the same file from last year. It is full of transactional scripts. I strongly encourage you to take it apart, look at that. It's how we do transactional scripts at Proof. These data manipulation scripts are context independent. They establish the context they need. They don't assume a user, so they are the perfect script. So let's say you were getting data coming in from a web service, and you pass that data off to this script to be processed. And no user was involved in any of that. So that's how we think. They are testable. And a testable solution is a durable solution. So these scripts are structured typically JSON in, do their thing, JSON out. It's a contract, like an API. They're often referred to as API scripts. So you can build a solution that sends that JSON to these scripts to run tests to see if they succeed. If in all the changes you just made, does that test still pass? Does that test error successfully, which is as important. And we'll want to talk about error handling. When I interviewed Korn, I said to him, you take up a solution, what's the first thing you do? And he says, I focus on the data manipulation scripts because I want clarity about schema changes. Schema is going to change, and I want to know exactly where that effect is going to be. So that is his focus, data manipulation scripts. Yes, we have DDR. If you don't know what a database design report is, it is a way for you can query the schema of your FileMaker solution. And there are tools out there, and I'm going to lean into tools. FM Perception, Base Elements, Inspector Pro, they will take the DDR is an input, and they'll let you query, what sets this field? You know, how many times is this script called? What calls this script? Those answers like that. So these transactional scripts, even though you can say this is the only script that creates a customer, you also have the backup, you have these database design report tools. And I'm going to hit again on transactional scripts because it's my topic. I spoke with Todd, and I said to him, what to you is a durable FileMaker solution? And he said, well, you know what I used to do to analyze a solution to see, is it good, it's stable, it's durable? I used to look to see how many times they use get less error. Now I look to see if they use transactional scripting. Because the new script steps that were introduced in 19.6 let you produce transactional scripts easily, and they're very powerful. And they also will help you improve your error handling game. They almost do it for you. They almost force you down such a good road, and that's why I'm such a fan of them. So these are the two different script styles. It's a definite mindset we have, and it helps us structure what we do. So we're going to drop into FileMaker just for a while and see how it plays out in a sample file. So I'm going into our sample file here that you can download. And we're going to start looking at, first of all, the script workspace. Now, the script workspace, how do I structure it? And I want to tell you this. I am not saying this is how you structure the script workspace. This is how you organize. No, I'm not being prescriptive like that. What I'd rather you walk away with, it's important to organize. That's better. Be realistic. You'll want to build new features. But organize as you go, because maybe you won't come back to doing it, but it pays off. It pays off for you because it becomes something future you knows where things are. It's not a mess. And your team, if someone else is going to work with you, as well. I know exactly where things are going to be because this is how we organize things. So script workspace. I typically have a folder for file. File is all the file-wide things. My on first window open, my on first window close. Something called feature flags, which we're going to talk about later. My system startup routine. That all happens in a folder called file. Then I usually have a folder for navigation. I'm giving you suggestions. You're going to make decisions based on your solution and your use cases. So navigation may work out for you, and this may evolve, but this is how I start. Then, like I said before, that thinking of two different types of scripts translates into, these are my UI scripts in application. Then I have a folder for each entity, typically, and it's alphabetical. And then below that, I have my transactional scripts, and I do the similar thing, folder for each entity. So these are the scripts that you might refer to as API scripts. These are my transactional scripts. And that's how I organize the script workspace. If I'm taking over a solution, I will put two dividers in and create my world above what exists. And then as I learn what they did, maybe I'll reuse this script. It'll get promoted. So that's how I work. I just draw a line. So let's all drop into the relationship graph. We all have strong opinions about the relationship graph. I know this. But I've done it all in my years, and I keep coming back to anchor buoy. If you're not familiar with what anchor buoy is, it is you have your main table occurrences are considered your anchors. They typically map to tables in your system. You base your layouts on them. So that's where you are in your solution. And then anything that relates off of that is considered a buoy. I name my table occurrences in what's called Pascal case, upper camel case. I'm alphabetical, down. I use these big callouts so I can zoom out and see the whole graph. I have underscores for in-between table occurrences. My table occurrences never have spaces, don't have underscores. That is reserved for linking them together. If I have a relationship that is filtered, such as this one, work order marked, I use a hashtag to tag it. So this is a filtered relationship. And I stick with this. What I started to do in some solutions is a table occurrence group, and this is an old practice, dedicated table occurrence group for cascading deletes. It sort of documents your referential integrity. This is the only, what I mean by that, these will be the only relationships that have this checked, this deletes. I delete an invoice, it deletes the invoice line items. And there's strong opinions on all of that. Again, suggestions. Okay, so that's script organization. And relationship graph, let's drop into tables. I think you're going to see a theme here. It's to keep it simple. I don't do code within my code. I don't have abbreviations. I avoid abbreviations like the plague. To me, they lend to confusion. For example, if I had a table named INV, what table is that? Is it invoices? Is it inventory? So that little bit of ambiguity is taking you a step away from maintainability. So I try to be clear. I don't use abbreviations. And I name them singular. I also have adopted this thing where I use a utility table, which is a table of just globals dedicated to that entity. So for example, if I'm creating a task, I'll have a table, task utility. It'll have globals that I need, and it's just globals to create a task. We're a big believer in not doing direct editing on a record. There's only certain circumstances where we will do that. Typically, we will pop a card window, have the user enter into globals, and then pass that data off, to the transactional script for processing. So what is that card window based on? It's based on this utility table. Let's look at fields. I do have a globals table, but that would be global to the solution, not to any specific entity. I'm going to look at invoice line. I'll talk about fields and naming conventions for field. So I'll go back and I'll say it again. Have a convention, stick to it, be consistent. That is what is of value to your team. That's what avoids confusion. That what lets you deliver quickly and stay durable. I have landed on primary keys are all ID and UUIDs. If it's a valueless table and the user's not creating records in that table, it's developer only, I will use an auto enter serial. So status types will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the only time I use auto enter serials. When you name a field, try to avoid spaces, try to avoid special characters. They will not play well when you do integrations. They'll cause you problems down the road, and that's why we don't do it. Again, I use Pascal case. Be specific in your field names. Take a moment. I know you want to go fast, and we can go fast in FileMaker. Unit price versus price, a little bit more clear. Use the comments down below, US dollars. Give a clue to think of future self. If you're saying I'm a single developer, none of this matters, well, it does, even to you, for yourself. So let's see, what else did I want to say about fields? Todd said, please say no spaces and no special characters. So I have. OK. So I'm just going to discard that, nothing to say. Layouts. So much stuff you have to organize in FileMaker. So layouts, I usually have UI layouts. Again, I'm with my one folder per entity. Oh, I have a question.
So on the ID field, I noticed a lot of people use a UUID instead of a serial number or a number. Why is that?
Speak up.
Oh, so on your ID field in your line items.
On my ID fields, yeah.
Yeah, you're generating a UUID instead of a number.
Instead of UUID number?
No, why are they switching from using a number in the ID field and moved over to a UUID? What's the advantages? Huh?
Why would you use a UUID over a number?
So in yours, you're using a UUID for your line item instead of a number for the succession of records. So first one would be, say, record 1000. The second one would be 1001.
Okay.
But you're using a UUID.
Invoice table.
Huh?
Say I'm in an invoice table. I will have an invoice doc number, which would be an auto enter serial, but I wouldn't use that as a key. So my key would be a UUID.
Yeah, but why use a UUID over a number?
Wow. I think
It's better.
Why?
But why?
over a number?
That was the question. Why? Because I was always taught to not
It
use.
prevents collisions? That's a good one, okay, I got people helping me out here.
Thinking.
Go ahead.
We have multiple markets in different cities where we've got invoices coming from different cities that will could very possibly start overlapping with the serial number. So the UUID
Yes.
is
Oh, and then the classic is if you have a mobile solution that's syncing. UUIDs became godsend because you can't have two iPads making work order 1,000. So that's the prevents clashes part of it. So that's why you would use it. I'm going to move on and try to take questions at the end. I'm sorry, but it's got to get so much in. Okay, so let's move on. And I apologize, I don't hear that well. All right, so layouts. Again, layouts are simply named, folder per entity, alphabetical order. I usually group cards together, and I lean into naming them consistently as well. And then I have special layouts that I use for transactions called processing layouts. Those are layouts that we land on. They're form view. They have no triggers, no fields. So they are performative in that they're not downloading a lot of data when they open. And so we save those. They have, I'll take a look at it, just a little processing on it. For the developer, you can add some fields to the developer layout. So that's what a processing layout's all about. And then I'll have dev fields, which are just table view fields. But I don't use dev fields for my transactions. I reserve the processing layouts for that. In case something accidentally puts a field on a processing layout, we don't want that. So it's, again, the theme is organize. And again, alphabetizing has always worked for me. Okay. Variables, more things to name, and comments. That's our last bit. Now, variables, boy, what I suggest you do with variables is spell it out and don't abbreviate. I keep saying that over and over again, I know, but it is such a big thing. Let's go to post an invoice. So, and let's talk about commenting in variables at the same time. So our transactional scripts are commented in a certain way. We usually have this param block at the top where we comment the JSON. I'm not diving too deep into this, but as you say, this is how we do it. Then actually I want to go to work order because I want to talk about comment. Here's my create a work order. You'll see it's a similar pattern. Param block at the top, a setup, to establish the transaction, start the transaction, validate. But customer ID is customer ID. It is not customer. It is not CID or CUSTID or any of that. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Like if I see customer in a variable, I'm like, is that an object? Is that a JSON object of customer? You know, or is it the ID? So use ID when you mean it. So remember I said there's no wrong way of doing things. Well, I will tell you that this is wrong. Do not do this. Customer has decided this business rule isn't going to be followed anymore. This is a little of just a thing I threw in there to make this point. So they're not going to do the fact that when you create a work order, it deletes all the tasks. It's a silly rule. Why did we have that? I don't know. Comment that out, save that script, and walk away, and I will hunt you down. Because that is crud. That is the next developer coming in and saying, why is this commented out? Or you, 6 months later, why did we comment that out? Is it supposed to be commented out? I don't know. No one's complained. I don't know. Let's go back to the DDRs and see. If you're going to leave this like this, add the comment. No longer required, and I'm not very good typist, okay? Use a text expander. We're big fans of Raycast. There's also Typinator. There's another one, Keyboard Maestro. There you go, okay? Everyone has their favorite. What do they give you? They give you speed. They give you consistency. In the case of comments, I have a date. I have a who I can go ask, why is this commented out? You did this on this day. Is this still applicable? You know, all of those conversations can have. What I'd rather you did is delete the code. You have backups, you have to bring it back. Also, another point I want to make about commenting is comment intention and comment with proximity, the principle of proximity. What I mean by that is this comment is near the code that it describes, proximity. You might go back up as well and add a comment in the top history block, if you have one. No longer, now supporting, now those type of comments. But there'll be two. So go down and see the detail. Intention is very good. So it is sometimes the source of your bug. So I'm looking through this thing, and I say, OK, now we're going to do this. So let's go back to post an invoice. Process that post an invoice. And my comment will be, once I get down, let's go do this. Let's update the inventory quantities. And then you go call the inventory quantities aren't updating. You know exactly where to go, because it's going to be in your transactional script that affects inventory. You can say, OK, this is the intention. Does the code do it? So that's good. And the other thing about being consistent is if you're not consistent, when you are consistent, when our brain is so good at patterns, when it sees something that breaks the pattern, that could be your source of your bug. So that's why I stress on consistency, and I'm kind of obsessed about it. So comment near where it matters. Don't leave disabled code uncommented. Variables. So tools. Let's just say I go in here and I'm just doing a test to show you something. That is monkey bread software. And the man himself is in the room. Shout out to Christian, because this is an amazing feature. It is a free plugin, and it does type ahead and linting for variables, which we don't get natively in FileMaker. It has prevented a million bugs in my life. So this is showing you all the variables that are defined. I have a link as URL at the end of my slides. Make use of your tools to be consistent, to avoid bugs. Come back. 2 minutes clicking. OK. OK, no abbreviations, all of that. Be respective, active, comments, other comments. So I talked about commenting within your code, using the comments that are in the field definitions if you can. I use layout post-its to do comment in the relationship graph. Layouts, I will do dev notes, especially if I have funky layouts where, like, let's go to a customer form. If I'm doing so, we'll talk about this guy later. If I'm doing something in here and there's like hidden slide panels and layers, I will add and hide, but I'll add a dev note. Oops, not there. And I'll say layered fields. And I'll leave that, and usually have a style defined for that. So it's really loud and yellow. Obviously doesn't belong in browse mode, so we're going to hide that true. So that's a very good practice, a source of comments. And if they're cluttering, then use the right-hand side to give you sort of a good dev note. One of the most obvious things to do for things like that is a data API layout. Typically, when you do a data API integration, you dedicate layouts for that. You namespace them. In our world, we name them DAPI, and we put big words, do not rename, and do not change field names, Barbara. And so that's an inside joke. Anyway, so leave yourself comments. And on comments outside of FileMaker, here's what I'll do. If it's a very complex workflow, I'll make a movie for me. And I will post it in our project management software, in our documentation on the project, so that when I have to come back to that, I'll watch the movie to bring me up to speed. Or I'll make the movie for my teammates. Like, you know, maybe this is a documented. I will record a Zoom session to myself take the transcript, run it through AI things to summarize it, and I'll post it as a document. So that's very helpful for getting you back up to speed. So you can comment outside of FileMaker. I also, before I start something big or make a significant change, I will run a DDR, and I will have a history of DDRs. If you don't know what a DDR is, please go visit Dave Ramsey at the FM Perception booth at Proofgeist, and he will talk to you all about what DDRs can do for your life. So that is a history of the schema, and allow you to ask questions of the schema. So you can comment outside the code. All righty, back to some slides. So let's see, I go back to Keynote. I missed my special string. I'm going to look at a relationship graph that I am now working in and a solution that we just recently took over. So it's not how I do it, but there is a method to the madness. So I'm going to learn from it. I'm not going to immediately change it. I'm going to learn from it. Let me point it out. So estimate, at the bottom, it's red. I have no idea why it's red. There's no key of why it's red. Red is danger to me, so I don't know whether I should be afraid of the estimates. I don't know. OK. Then, if you'll see, there's a table occurrence. I don't know if I can point on this. Yeah, my pointer doesn't show it. So there's a table occurrence there. Estimate lowercase, space, uppercase item, dot all. OK. I find some people love it, and that's great. Just be consistent. But changing the cases takes me time, and so I don't do it anymore. It never paid off for me. All right, so that's from an estimate, see all the items, right? Nope. There is no item table. It's the line item table. So that threw me. So it slows you down. Again, that little bit of ambiguity is what you want to avoid. So up above that, you'll see estimate underscore line item. That's me. So as I'm adding, right, I'll add it my way. I don't do the big Post-its around the blocks because they were always in my way. So this is an example of how I take over. I change as I go because I do want to understand what I'm inheriting first. This one, the top is how I got it. 2 hours later is how I left it. I didn't break any lines. I didn't change any colors, even though they're meaningless. But now I can work, and our team can work. And it was causing bugs because there were maybe a calculation that was reaching out to a table occurrence. And yeah, FileMaker got there, but through this circuitous route to get there, that was killing performance. So it's an important thing. It's not just pretty. The anchor buoy method lets you see the path, lets you not make those mistakes of reaching out to the wrong table occurrence, the wrong relationship to get to your answer. This slide, the left-hand side is how we got the script, and the right-hand side is how we refactored it. So in FileMaker, you can bury logic. It's easy to do that. And this script, in the top corner there, they had a lot of conditional logic buried in calcs in let statements. And it was very clever, but man, to debug this thing, because it wasn't actually quite working, was a nightmare. I will give credit to Martha Zink, because she had the fortitude to stay with it longer than I did. And we broke it out, and she broke it out, up to the conditional functionality, which is about my cost code, is apparent, is at the surface. So I encourage you to do that as much as possible. If you feel that it is not as sophisticated a way of doing it, don't feel that way. Because it is, Todd Geist does it this way. I'll make it feel any better. Break it up, put it up higher. Don't be complex if you don't need to be. Let the script speak to you clearly. So this is some of my favorite quotes. Maintainability. Organization, consistency, simplicity, it's documented. I'm going to talk about realistic as well, but this is a great quote from a man it's referred to as Uncle Bob, apparently, And he is one of the founders of Agile software development. And it's not about making it look nice. It's about making it easier to change and extend. So there's a famous meme that I was going to include. And then this happened on our Slack chat, the meme. Because I said to Ernest, am I just stating common sense? And he said, no, common sense is not common. And then Todd chimed in, as always, with, don't use unusual characters. He spends his life troubleshooting systems with unusual characters, and so he says, not worth it. Stick with the basics. So here's the thing. When you're starting out in your FileMaker career, you're the beginner on the left, and you're climbing the hill, and you're learning techniques, and you're so proud of yourself that you can do all these complex things, and you think the goal is to be at the top of the hill. It's not. The goal is to come down the hill and have your code actually be more in common with the beginner. That's the master. And coming down that hill is not hard. It's not easy, I'm sorry. It is hard to keep it simple. But it is rewarding for you and your team. So if we meet complexity, if we have no choice, we will move towards complexity, but not for clever's sake. And when I talked to Dave Ramsey, he gave me this great quote. Do you ever find yourself in this place? You write the code as cleverly as possible. You're not smart enough to debug it. I mean, I love that one. So, maintainable. How do you accomplish maintainable? And here's another slide that you might end up, when it's finally revealed, taking a photo of it. You're organized. Do it now. You're not going to clean up later, like a chef. Be consistent. Lean into script patterns. Use JSON for parameter passing. You're going to do an integration. You're going to be working with JSONs. You might as well use it everywhere. And it's easy. Easy stuff, really, quite honestly. Have a convention for your layout names, for your field names, for your relationship graph, and stay with it. Keep it simple. So now I have to have a point about indirection. So these DDR reports that I talk about that let you say, what sets this field, are relying on the fact that there's a reference to that field in your code. But you can build code that uses something called indirection, where instead of saying set field, you say set field by name. And when you do that, again, I want to talk about trade-offs. You've made a trade-off. You no longer can ask FM perception what sets that field and get an answer that's 100%. Now, you might say, but I know that this is the only script that sets that field, so I'm aware of that. But that's great. You've made the trade-off. You understand the trade-off you made. That's my point. So yes, you can use indirection, but realize what you're giving up by doing it. But it might be more efficient. It might be more performant to do it that way. So I'm not saying don't, but it's situational. And documented. I talk about meaningful documenting your code with intention and as close to it as possible. And realistic. Software's never done. You are going to come back. You are going to have to troubleshoot that block of code that you're like, it's done, don't touch it. No, that's not really realistic. The other thing I want to say is some of us are very big fans of logical data models, normalized structures, and if you know what I mean by that, great. If you don't, no, it's not a big problem. What it does mean in FileMaker is if you create a lot of tables and you're here on the relationship graph and you need to reach a value that's 5 hops away, they call it, your performance is going to be just die. It just can't do it well in FileMaker. So what we do is we take that answer and we store it closer to where it's needed. And this demo file has that in when you look at post an invoice. I take the customer's total sales and I write it to the customer record. So the customer always knows it's total sales in a number field. So how do I do that? Transactional scripts. Because I'm touching more than one record, it's a transactional script. So you can count on it, you can rely on it. So that's what you need to do. And that's what I mean by be realistic. If you want a performance solution, you can't have a highly one-end normalized solution. All right, whoa, told you I had a lot. Second half, deployable. I'm going to dig into deployable. I'm going to show you some tools to make your life so much better to do deployments. Software that doesn't ship might as well not exist. So how do you set yourself up to work with a team with less risk, and what useful tools are there for you to do so? So first thing I do, those magical things that I do that Martha thinks I do, is I set up an environment. I take over a solution. Okay, Barbara's starting on this solution. Okay, I get Infra to set me up my servers. I want at least a dev server. We don't work live. We do very little development live. It is risky. You go into managed database on a live system, you're locking tables, which means all your users might possibly get record locks. But you're okay, right? Because everything is transactional, so it's not that bad, right? Even I don't work live. You can risk, you could do replace field all or something in production data. And I've been there, and it was horrible, and I never want to be there again. So I set myself up server. I do all my coding in dev, and this little graphic that was produced by our excellent graphic designer, Van Lindsay, he showed me how I can take my files from dev and push it to production, or I can take my production files and copy them back to that third server, which is called a staging server. Some people call it a testing server. What that is, a staging refresh, is copy production back to this server, then migrate dev right on top of it. And now I have that sweet combination of the latest code with the freshest production data. And my user can test using that. And sometimes that's important, especially when you're doing dated data. Like we have a solution where they are loading up trucks that do dispatch, and it's a calendar solution. And if they don't have the latest data, the calendar's not showing anything because it only shows the last 2 weeks. So sometimes you really need that staging environment, and it helps users. So that's what I do, I set up my environment. How do I prep the solution? Here's what I do. I lock down the server name because I can now rely on get hostname because the solution needs to know it's on dev. Why? Because when I'm on dev, I might want certain things to just not happen. I don't want emails to go out. If they go out at all, maybe they go out to the one person I've designated for testing, but I don't want them going out to actual customers, right? So it needs to know it's on the development server, it's going to act differently. Maybe APIs are turned off. So we'll talk about get hostname, and I'm going to show you how you lock down that server name using our tool AutoFMS. There's some custom functions that we have published to help you with that. And then I tag the UI. Remember I told you I was going to come back to that little red dev thing? Because it's very difficult sometimes for the user to transition. They're looking at the same thing that they see in production. You don't want them entering production data into your staging or testing, right? So give them a visual clue where they are. That's what tagging is. I'll show you how I do that. And then I define the deployments using our free tool auto deploy. I usually have at least 2, a dev to prod, that's my final push to prod, and that staging refresh that I described. Okay. When you are working, break up big features as small as you can and deliver small and deliver often. It is less risk. It is less for your users to absorb what just changed. So I do that. If you are working in dev, and let's say you're working in your team, feature A is finished, ready to ship, but feature B isn't, use feature flags to hide feature B until it's ready to be on. I will show you a little bit of feature flags, but last year Eric Luce did a whole presentation on feature flags, available on YouTube. I'll show you the link at the end. And he goes, oh, feature flags at college level. And then we use our deployment tools. Because if you can script something, if you can automate something, then that will reduce human error. So we definitely lean into deployment tools. Demo time again. OK. I'm going to show you not seeing anything yet. Okay. I'll just close this. I don't need this anymore. Okay. What you're seeing here is AutoFMS. AutoFMS is a software application that is installed on your FileMaker server. And it has all sorts of wonderful superpowers it adds to your server. The one that I want to point out to you is just one little radio button, little checkbox right there. Override FileMaker server name. Again, you want your solution to know it's on the dev server. How do you do that? You use get host name. Okay, so you name your host. In this case, I name it engage-dev. And then I parse that, and I say, okay, if you see that in the host name, then you're on dev. Act accordingly. But then my friend decides, I don't like dev. I'm going to do, something else. And they change the name on me, and dev is no longer there. And I was counting on that. And now dev doesn't know it's dev, and bad things happen. That's why this feature was produced, so that Auto won't let it change. So if someone goes into the admin console and changes the server name, Auto will say, nope, changes it right back. So you also get to tag your server, and we give you the 3, but you can do whatever you want. Development, I typically make development green. And if I go back, you see my servers here. I have prod, which is red, warning, danger, and staging over here. So I've locked down my server. So what does that mean in FileMaker? So if I go to the data viewer, get host name has that tagged in brackets that Auto puts in, and Auto won't let anyone change. So the custom functions will look at that and see dev server is true, 1, because it's looking for that tag, so it can safely parse it out. And then what I'll do is I'll use that. I will go into my on first window open script, and I would establish what server I'm on. So server type is hosted. I'm trying to find a script result. I got my feature flags. We'll talk about it in a minute. I actually play into those as well. If hosted, here's my server type. Let's look at the calc for the server type. And I just use this custom function. Your dev server, I want the word development, otherwise staging, otherwise prod. So and then we talked about tagging on the layout. A little short on time, so I'm waiting. I usually put a button bar on the layout. It goes on every single layout. And it hides if it's the prod server. And the little calc in it is simply the words. So if you look at the calc for it, if you're the staging server, say staging, otherwise dev. Doesn't show at all on prod, so I don't have to worry about it. And that's just a visual cue to pop over. I can throw some fields over there if I want to. And so that's tagging the solution. Again, I take this one thing and I put it everywhere, so the user knows they're in dev. Let's talk about feature flags. Let's talk about this credit hold. So I'm developing this feature. The user come to me, the client, and they say, you know what? We do not want them to be able to create a work order for a customer that's on credit hold. That's our use case. Build me this credit hold feature, Barbara. Meanwhile, I got feature B, feature C's, D, E, and they're ready to roll. So I need to hide this while it's in development. But I want to always be able to push to prod. That's kind of the goal you have. So what is a feature flag? A feature flag is a big switch. I usually have a script, one script, multi-file solution. They all call this script. What are the feature flags? And here I have an invoice post feature I'm working on and a credit hold feature I'm working on. And not is production. Not true if it's production. Not ready yet. It'll return those settings, and in my first window open, I'll call that script, get feature flag, get the result, parse the result, promote those to global variables, which I namespace FF, abbreviation, underscore, but it's nice namespace, credit hold. So now the system knows what credit hold is. Is it true or is it not true? And then I'll hide not credit hold. Credit hold is not true, hide this. So I can ship this thing, they'll never even know it's there. Sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes you're branching in a script. You do something like you introduce and you'll refactor and you'll say, well, if credit hold is true, do this, else do that. And you might just leave it like that forever. You don't necessarily need to go back and clean up all your feature flags. So don't feel that burden on you. But that's a really useful tool. As I said, Eric went really deep into feature flags last year. Okay, so that's a little bit, that's why I like this demo file, because it's really how we do things. It's not just a techniques file, selection, it's an app. It's its own little starter file with all the goodies. All right, I'm ready. Oh, I'm going to ship. I'm going to ship credit hold. So I'm going to go to my feature flag. I'm going to simply say credit hold is ready to roll. So I am going to ship this to production. I'm simply going to say it is now true. That's all the logic I need. When they call this up, we're ready to ship. How do we ship? I use a tool called auto deploy. And auto deploy works with auto FMS to move your dev code to production. So this is auto deploy, free tool from Proof Guys. I've defined my deployments. I'm going to ship dev to prod. So I'm going from the dev server to the prod server. I am taking my Durable Solutions starter file. I'm migrating it over to the production file. Click Review and Deploy. Gives me a summary. I stay here a minute. Yep, this is what I want. And then I click Start. And it deploys. And it gives you a little log of what it's doing. So if you're one who likes to watch washing machines, you will watch the auto deploy log. And you can also schedule this so it happens at 2 a.m. and you're blissfully sleeping. But the benefit of this thing is what it will do is it will back up production. Then this server will request what's called a clone from your development server, essentially moving the new schema over to production. Then it will use the FM migration tool to move the production data into the new schema. If it encounters any error at all, it will roll back as if nothing happened. And the previous production will open up again. You'll figure out eventually what happened, what went wrong. But if nothing goes wrong, it just works. And now all your new schema is in production with the production data. And there's a backup just in case. And you're all set. And my feature flag is true. And I'm done. I have deployed. What is that? That is Zoom coming in. OK. So let's go back a little bit to some slides. And you're seeing that. You've got two key goals to create a durable FileMaker solution. Mindset. You want to be maintainable. It's important. It's important for your team. It's important for future you. It helps you spot bugs. So be organized, be consistent, keep it simple. And you want to be deployable. You want to deliver value as quickly as possible to your client. So use the tools that are out there to do so. And happy FileMaker. Thank you very much. Here's some resources that I pointed out to. If you like, thanks you guys. If you like this whole DevOps idea, right, continuous development, continuous deployment, visit Cohen Walker later today. He is doing building efficiency. He's going deeper into the topic at 4:30. Eric Luce's link to his YouTube on feature flags. We will talk at Proof Guys. You know, like, I got to work on this thing. Make sure you wrap that in a feature flag. Right? That's how we talk. You know, feature flag that thing. General tools. So this is the Monkey Bread software link over here. Definitely go do that. It'll make you change your life. Typinator, Raycast. type ahead, consistency, and be efficient. And these are the 2 books that are sort of like the Bibles that are out there. There are others, I'm sure. These are the ones I'm familiar with. They're not FileMaker books, but they talk about how do you name a variable? How do you best name a variable? And how to clean code and self-documenting code, so to speak. So those are excellent resources. They'll be in the slides. Thank you very much. It's so wonderful to have such a crowd after all this work. I'm leaving you my email. I would love to continue the conversation. Feel free to email me. You have questions about the demo file or how do I even start? I have been asked, and I would really love to get your feedback on this presentation. It's available on the Engage2Go app. These are the directions to do that. And where are we in time? Pretty good, 5 minutes. Oh, 5 minutes for question. So that is, we are done. I have 5 minutes for questions, so go ahead.
I was wondering about.
I'm not supposed to leave the podium.
I was wondering about being consistent with layouts. Do you guys have a procedure in place for like when you do layouts?
Something about layouts. So, is someone willing to repeat? Andrew, can you help me out?
How to make consistent layouts. How to do it. How to do your layouts consistently.
How do
One
I do my
layout.
layouts consistently?
Using the naming
design
of
of
the-
layouts.
That is a challenge in FileMaker. It's not you. The tools are OK. We definitely stick to a theme. So we do adapt a theme that we use in every layout. We do establish a grid. I know Alexis Allen's doing a presentation, too, on design. But we establish a grid. We use the theme. We have conventions. That's another whole topic. True, it's part of a durable solution. It's up there at error handling, UX, UI. So it is a challenge to be consistent. So you just have to establish, I like to name styles for purpose, rather than this is Times New Roman 12-point bold, this is portal title, things like that. I don't have any magic beans on layout consistency. Do we have another one back there, yeah?
Yeah, so you talked earlier about how you restructured the data graph to be using an anchor buoy implementation instead of what you initially found it. Do you normally do that at the beginning of every project, or do you just do it as a needed basis?
I'm going to repeat that for me.
When do you restructure to anchor buoy? At the beginning or in the middle?
Refresh staging.
No. If you come into an existing solution, do you change it to anchor buoy in the middle or at the beginning? When do you do that?
I change as I go. I do change as I go. It will be anchor buoy when I'm done. Mostly. I'm sorry there's more to your question I couldn't hear, but I just really can't think any other way. There have only been a handful of circumstances. I'm not dogmatic. Let's put it this way. If I am making a printed invoice, I might just use the buoy, invoice to invoice line item, for the basis of that report. Even though in true, pure anchor buoy, there should be an invoice line item anchor and build off of that. But it's definitely as I go. If I can learn from it at all. But if I can't learn from it at all, there's no rhyme or reason, and it's causing us to be slower, then I will refactor it right away. Yes?
Do you have any tips for how you've reconciled against your own code as your standards? And
oh, do we have published Proofgeist how we do it? Well, what's the interesting thing? We don't really have standards. We don't have a published code thing at all. I'm probably the one who runs around screaming at everyone about standards the most. Todd doesn't. Todd's like, make it work, make it simple, make it clear. So our standards are more the concepts of no abbreviations, no special characters. So, but I'll take that back to the team and say, people might be interested in a standard. But this demo file is very representative of our work.